Alchemy has been prevalent throughout human history and as well as laid the foundation of modern chemistry and as well as psychology, despite the fact it has been disproven as pseudoscience. We see its attributes in television shows, movies, games, and books, whether it be literal in the form of Philosopher's Stone in Harry Potter or used as a power system for alchemists. So I'm just going to give a brief description of alchemy to everyone that's curious about it. And Harper's Encyclopedia of Mystical and Paranormal Experience, it says on the section of alchemy, literally an ancient art of transmutation and the precursor of modern chemistry and metallurgy, symbolically a mystical art for the transformation of the consciousness. Current Western interest in alchemy is largely due to psychologist Carl Gustav Jung, who saw it as having spiritual dimension as well as a physical one. The true purpose of the art is the psychological and spiritual transformation of the alchemist. Alchemy is called a sporadic art, from the Greek terms for to tell and to bring together. As a mystical art, it draws on various spiritual traditions including the Hermetica, Gnosticism, Islam, the Kabbalah, Taoism, and Yoga. Eastern and Western academical arts have developed differently over the years. Western alchemy draws on the Hermetic tradition of Greco-Roman teachings. According to legend, the founder is Trismegistus, a form of a combination of the Egyptian and Greek gods of magic and wisdom, Thoth and Hermes, respectively. In the late Egyptians BC and the early centuries AD, the Egyptians combined metallurgy with Hermetic philosophy and ideas drawn from Western mysteries, Neoplatonism, Gnosticism, and Christianity. The Egyptians developed one of the basic fundamentals of alchemy, that the world was created by a divine force out of the chaotic mass called prima materia, or the first matter. Thus, in alchemy, all things can be reduced to first matter through
solve et coagula.
Quote, to dissolve and combine, which goes back to the quote or the Greek terms to tear and to bring together and transmute to something more desirable. Specifically, alchemists thought to transmute through joining opposites. So it's like the harmony of yin and yang or something like that, which is like it's going to be referenced later as we move further on. By the 4th century AD, alchemy has assumed its historical form and essentially replaced the disintegrating mysteries. It spread throughout Europe beginning in the 12th century, a product of Muslim occupation of Spain. It was a highly respected science, practiced by adepts who wrote their treatises and manuals in deliberately obscure language. The term gibberish is derived from a medieval alchemist named
Jabir ibn Hayyan,
generally known as Jibril, who died in 721 to 815, whose writings were largely unintelligible, hence gibberish. Alchemy was at its peak from the late Middle Ages through the Renaissance. Alchemists thought the elusive Philosopher's Stone or lapis, a mysterious substance believed to enable the transmutation of base materials into silver or gold. The Philosopher's Stone also served as the elixir of life, a means to immortality. While most attempts at metals transmutations were failures, some alchemists have claimed to have succeeded. One such example is Nicholas Flamel, one of the great alchemists of the 14th century, and is said to have achieved transmutation of mercury to its current state into silver or gold on at least 3 occasions. The writings and drawings produced by the alchemists tend to be obscure and difficult to understand. The alchemists based their study primarily on direct personal revelation through visions and dreams. The alchemists did not describe their work in direct terms, but wrote and drew in symbols intended only for the composition of other adepts. They varied in their use of terminology. According to early alchemy, all things have a hermetic alphabetic composition of 2 substances, sulfur, which represents the soul and the fiery male principle, and mercury, which represents the spirit and a watery female principle. Later European alchemy added a third ingredient, salt, which corresponds to the body. So you get the soul, the spirit, and the body. This transmutation process involves separating these three essential and recombining them into different forms. The process must be done according to the
astrological auspices.
As a combination of the mysteries, alchemy may essentially have been a euphemism for the sacred service of coercion, made possible by immortalization, a status that has been achieved through imitation into mysteries. The hermaphroditic nature of alchemy has often expressed in erotic art, though there is no evidence that actual sexual rituals were practiced. Medieval and Renaissance alchemists were responsible for many discoveries important to metallurgy, chemistry, and medicines. However, in the early 19th century, alchemy has been discredited by the discoveries of oxygen and composition of water. Alchemy was reduced to a level of pseudoscience and superstition and was replaced by physics. Interest in alchemy remained low-key until about the second half of the 20th century, when the revival of interest began taking hold in the West. Alchemy schools were founded to teach the ancient art, resulting in spiritualistic products for cosmetics, herbal medicines, beverages, wines, and perfumes, and so on. Eastern alchemy was highly developed in ancient China. It was an ordeal tradition until AD 320 or AD 320, when the classic academical text Nebulan was written by Carl Jung. The immortality sought by the Chinese was not an extension of earthly years. They sought instead to attain a state of timelessness spent with the immortals, in which one has supernormal powers or supernatural powers. To this end, ancient Chinese alchemy focused on various elixirs, which were purified by combining ingredients and repeatedly heating them in various vessels. The alchemical process is analogous to Taoist meditation, in which qi, the universal life force, is created and purified in the body. Qi is created when the nutritious elements of food are combined with secretions from grains and organs. This forms blood and sexual energy, or
Jun.
Heat in the form of breath transforms the sexual energy to qi, which circulates up and down psychic channels along the spine. From the crown to the abdomen, somewhat akin to the
割内领
energy of yoga, the qi passes through 12 psychic centers located along the channels. After many cycles, the qi becomes refined. It reaches the crown in a highly concentrated state where it can be manipulated or else sent back down to the abdomen. Qi can be stored for future use as well. In Indian alchemy, traces its roots to the earlier than 1000 BC in the development of
Ayurvedic.
the wisdom of life, where it continues to play a role in today. Indian alchemy is the union of male, Shiva, and female, Pravanti principles. This result in Jivan, an enlightened being. In both Hindu and Chinese traditions, one may also achieve immortality through Interanic yoga. Prolonged abstinence or courtesias without erection is believed to intensify the life force. It essentially is either prana or chi and produce physiological changes. Now on to alchemy in relation to Carl Jung. Carl Gustav Jung's interest in alchemy grew out of his intense interest in Gnosticism and his desire as early as 1912 to find a link between it and the process of the collective consciousness that would pave the way for a retry of the Gnostics' Sophia, which means wisdom, into modern culture. He found such a link in alchemy, which he saw as analogous to the individuation, the process of becoming whole. Jung had many significant dreams during his life, and in 1926 he had one in which he was a 17th century alchemist who created a great academical work. The dream proven to be prolific, as Jung made alchemy a great focus in much of his work. Inspired that and other academical dreams, Jung collected a vast body of works on alchemy and immersed himself in the study of the subject. His research was greatly influenced by The Secret of the Golden Flower, a Chinese mystical alchemical tract discovered by Jung's friend Richard William and given him by William in 1928 for comment. The Secret of the Golden Flower revealed to Jung the bridge between Gnosticism and psychology of the unconscious. In comparing the Chinese tract with the Latin academical works, Jung found that the alchemy systems of both East and West essentially dealt with the transformations of the soul. Jung was amazed to notice that many of his patients, men and women of both European and American backgrounds, produced in their dreams and fantasies symbols that were similar to or identical to those in myth, fairy tales, and the mystery cults and academical work. His insight led him to develop his ideas about the collective unconscious, a repository of primordial images and patterns of behavior shared by mankind. Jung's first important words on alchemy were a lecture on academical symbolism in dreams titled Dreams, Symbols, and Individuation Process, delivered in 1935 at Villa Eros of Lake Megiro in southern Switzerland. A year later, also at Eros, he lectured on the idea of redemption alchemy. His first book on the subject was Psychology and Alchemy in 1944. Ion, Academical Studies, and Mysterium Cornelius also dealt with alchemy. Jung's knowledge on alchemy is exemplified throughout all of his later writings. Jung saw alchemy as a spiritual process of redemption involving the union and transformation in lumen del I, the light of the Godhead, and lumen de naturel, the light of nature. Alchemists' experimental procedure have sought their gula symbolize the death and rebirth of substance they use. Alchemists who are part of the process and transmute their own consciousness into a higher state through symbolic death and rebirth. According to Jung, the early Christian alchemists used the philosopher's stone as a symbol of Christ. Thus, in its highest mystical sense, alchemy represents the transformation of consciousness to love, personified by the Hermaphrodite, the union of male and female opposites, physicality and spirituality, who are joined into a whole.